Well, happy August, everyone.
Already,
I don't know, it's
May.
making me sad. Yeah.
Too
I want it
fast.
to be August. So can you hear us okay?
Yes,
Okay, great. All right, we have affordable housing on our agenda today, and Karen leads that team.
Yep.
And I,
Champions that.
you absolutely leads is probably an understatement.
Well, I wrote down a bunch of
Very
stuff that
passionate.
we've kind of gone over. But before we do, I want you to know that, and it's being recorded, I talked to Senator Helming on Friday night in a bar. But
Okay.
you do good talking in a bar, and she wants to take me and show me some properties. And I, after some digging and on her part, a glass of wine, she told me that I gleaned that they are typically trailer properties and rundown properties as a result of people living in affordable housing.
Yeah,
So in my opinion, it was, she wanted to show me the negative side of affordability. And we have agreed to meet again. And I kind of went passionate on her and told her, you know, sometimes you have to take the bad with the good. But there definitely was a need. And I brought up the interesting thing was I brought up the tax credit competition, and she acted like she knew very little about that. Is that understandable? It is. So my goal the next time I talk to her is to talk to her about supporting us and supporting our builders in trying to, in that competition. And I'll
Yeah,
carry that further. I just,
well, that's a very interesting point, seriously, Karen, because it's about connecting the dots, right? And so when our legislators are debating and voting on legislation or even the budget bills, sometimes they're talking about a huge pot of money for instance, HCR, Housing and Community Renewal, the Division of Housing and Community Renewal. And they may not fully comprehend how that feeds down to specifically what that means. And the tax credit being part of a, let's say $1 billion, I don't know whatever the number is, but let's hypothetically say it's $1 billion. The tax credits could be 10% of that in any given budget year, that they may or may not truly understand. If they're not, if that particular avenue is not assigned to them in one of their committees, they may not have the intimate knowledge to understand the connection and what that means. And so that's where, truthfully, getting all of our developers that are competing for these tax credits together and helping tell that story to our elected officials may pay dividends, because then they would have a better knowledge there.
and that was the thing that crossed my mind. You know, we have a list of developers who are in the affordable housing market. And we have on our list bringing developers together. Perhaps she would be a good person to be at that meeting and hear it from them, the importance of tax credits and the development of affordable housing.
I think we could really take it a step further and maybe even include maybe countywide if we wanted to, and let them kind of lead, but even bringing not only Senator Helming, but Senator McGallahan, also the
Yes.
congressional reps, but also bringing in the state agencies. Bringing in Charlie Fillion from the New York State Division of Housing and Community Renewal, and let him see firsthand that we have developers that are ready to go, or Lenny Skrill, or Empire State Development, some of these entities. Obviously, it ties in with the county too, with county economic development, bringing everybody together to say, hey, we have this, you know, we have these developers that are interested in doing this. A lot of times what I keep hearing from the state side is exactly what you just described, where they may have money to help support affordable housing, but they get the NIMBY and they run
Exactly,
into communities that are not interested in it.
exactly. And that's what precipitated the whole conversation. And when she mentioned seeing these properties, I've known her a long time and I know in her voice what she's referring to. And I kind of just, of course, I had a Manhattan. She only had a glass of wine. I kind of went off on her.
Well,
But anyway, so that leaves me in some direction because we're getting together this month. So, okay, great. All right. So I went through the effort of looking back on my notes and trying to determine what we've accomplished this year. So we've been meeting for just a little more than a year. We started last June of 2021. And we've been meeting for a year. We've talked to developers, nonprofits, housing advocates. We've gathered information on what affordable housing is, who the market is, and some, but not all, of the steps we need to take to develop a plan. And last month, we met with County Administrator Chris DeBolt, who announced that the county will be undertaking the task of a housing and infrastructure inventory. They have an RFP out, which will be awarded on Thursday. And they have approval from the Board of Supervisors Steering Committee. And supposedly the support of the Board of Supervisors, only he didn't really come right out and say that, but I kind of, and hearing him talk about it twice, I kind of got that impression. So they're looking for a robust inventory of current stock and a market analysis that would also include current emergency housing services. So he stressed how important it was to have the support of municipalities from the very beginning, and thanked us, I mean, our little group here, for starting this effort. And it's because of us that they're doing this. So thank you, everyone. So in the finals, he had a schedule, and kickoff is scheduled for August. Information gathering, he estimated would be 5 to 6 months. And he's hoping to end at the end of the second quarter of 2023 and have some sort of plan, document. I don't really know what I'm hoping for, a plan or some steps to take next is, I think, probably maybe the best we can hope for. I don't know. And in the final stages, the interesting thing is he is talking about meetings with landowners and housing developers and addressing their needs and ideas. And of course, we've had that same thought of putting landowners and developers together. So I think we can work together on that. I sent him our list of participants, which now is at 31 names. And I told him, not all, I pointed out which ones are here on a regular basis because I think they're pretty intimately involved. Habitat, Pat Stone, Happiness House, and some of the others, Family Promise. Yeah. So, and I suggested that he look at including some of those people on his team because they all have different viewpoints and they all address a different market. So whether he does or not, that's not my doing. So we have to keep in mind that this is just the first step. In my opinion, it's an important step, but without it, we can't really develop a plan. And I mentioned to him at the meeting that my goal is to have the town of Canandaigua be a model for this. I would love to see that happen. I'm not sure it can happen, but that's where my passion lies. And I'd like to have something to show that we can do that will create affordable, lasting housing, lasting affordable housing, put it that way. So
Karen, just real quick on that, when that conversation came up, it just so everybody's on the same page, it's just so everybody's aware, when that exact point came up in the affordable housing meeting, there were some questions that were raised about whether or not the public of the community wants to be seen as a model and is interested in being a model
yes,
for affordable housing. And I think what our conversation turned to was getting the data from the county, hopefully, and then maybe having, I don't know if you have that in your report, some public engagement sessions to see whether or not our community would support affordable housing.
right. And I do, down toward the
Oh,
bottom,
sorry,
I
sorry.
do
Okay.
have that about
Yeah.
addressing, having public meetings with the
Yeah.
town residents. So.
There were some pretty strong feelings.
There were.
Yeah.
Also, I just want to add to that. You kind of downplayed it, but I feel like the county administrator is looking at us, at the town as a true
Yes,
example.
I do
As,
too.
yeah, absolutely. We've taken the lead on this. We will be an example to other communities in the county.
And I believe the town and the county together, and the county really has to be the example because it has a wider range of abilities to gather
Reach.
information and
Mhm.
provide services. And we also spoke about having it, expanding it to more than a one county area, and he did talk about that briefly
did.
too. So that would be an ultimate goal, but I don't think it needs to be an interim goal. I think, we can go ahead and keep working toward an end and hoping that it expands. It did expand in, is it Batavia region? Is that Genesee County? So they have a 3-county area affordable housing team. And like I said, I would hope for a 5-county because I would like to see that the whole middle of the state engaged. And, maybe he heard me, maybe he didn't. I know where he parks his body now, so I can drop in on him now and then and see how it's going, but we'll see about that. Another thing that we talked about was the increase in apartment dwellers as a result of the pandemic. The younger generation seems to want to be more mobile in their job seeking and in their career development. And that tends to lead toward apartment dwelling. So his comment was, what does it mean for towns like Manchester and Phelps? And he has a real good point there. The town of Manchester is huge and envelops many trailer parks and lower income people.
What was the genesis of that?
Of what?
All those trailer parks in Manchester, how did that evolve?
I think there was I really think it was primarily driven by, there was a local sales outlet there. There was Key at the time.
Yeah,
There was
it's outside of-
affordable.
Out of Newer, outside of,
Oh, there's one right outside Clifton Springs there, right there.
oh yeah,
over
right,
by-
yeah,
And I think that's really what precipitated. quite a
You
bit
mean
of that.
manufacturing
manufactured homes, right?
of the homes? That-
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Was Owl?
And then the zoning allowed for it.
Yeah.
and they were able-
The land was more affordable for one thing.
Yeah.
And,
It's just
And
interesting.
it butts up
that-
against the
that- that-
thruway a
Well,
lot
it's-
of
yeah,
those too.
Most of it does. Has a
Yeah.
throughway view.
Yeah.
well, there's some pretty bad trailers. Take a ride down Outlet Road sometime. And you'll see some.
Often,
I grew up in Clifton Springs, yeah.
96. yeah,
96,
it's
yeah.
just-
Mhm.
Yeah. But anyway, that's going to be an issue. But I mean, I know personally that in the town, these villages of Phelps and Clifton Springs, there are many 2-family, 3-family, 4-family homes, multiple family homes.
Mhm.
And I mean, we can work with that and they'll all be part of the inventory. So we just need, when he said that, it brought to mind that we really need to be cognizant of the areas that, even though they have a problem, might not have the same solution as other areas have. So, and I'll be honest with you, right from the very beginning, I don't believe we can have an affordable housing plan without trailer parks. And I know people don't like hearing that, and the people in the town of Canandaigua are not gonna like hearing that. But my feeling is they're a necessary evil. When you look at the rent for an apartment at anywhere affordable from $750 to maybe $1,000, you know, and you can get rent on a trailer park for $400 or $500, there's a big difference. And you know, young people, young families, they need to have a place to live. The thing that I have a problem with him working, just as my problem, I'm just going to mention it, is the homeless situation, because I don't think we're equipped to address the homeless situation. I believe we can support nonprofits who have the tools and the specified funding to deal with homelessness. I don't believe we do, but I think we can support them. That's it. And then we had a discussion about transportation that Doug brought up, and I believe he realizes the need for reliable, affordable transportation throughout the entire area. So my final question is, we are still looking at doing meet and greets with landowners and developers. Should we include the county in those so that they can kind of get a reading directly from developers?
Yeah, I think it would be good. Last week, I had the state vice president of Empire State Development here, and did a tour with him, with Ryan Davis, the county economic development director, and Matt Horn, the four of us. We did a tour of Uptown. We talked about some of the affordable housing initiatives that we have going on, talked about the team. It was very well received. Actually, he was the most excited about Motion Junction, and talked about not only from the inclusive piece of the playground, but the inclusiveness that brings to the housing market, and the bridge that exists between something like Motion Junction and affordable housing, and the initiatives to bring those items together. Shared with him the Edgemere development and some of the other properties. Super excited about all of that in Happiness House, but again, they're competing. We've got now Edgemere, we've got Capstone, we have Happiness House, we have DeMarco. I think I'm missing one. All competing for the same exact tax credits in the town of Canandaigua. They're not all going to get it.
That's right. That's why I brought it up to Senator
Right.
Hill.
Yeah.
Capstone is
That's right. And
So is
Landing. Don Lasher.
Oh, Donna's Capstone.
Mhm. Plus, there's 3 initiatives in the city of Canandaigua that I'm working with Matt Horn and the city manager on, that could also include. So I mean, there's no way the state of New York is going to give all the money to the Canandaigua community.
No, I understand.
Right.
I do understand that.
Especially given, I think we're viewed as a very prosperous community,
Well-
thanks to their assessments on the lake.
And the other thing is, truthfully, the state officials will sniff out if there's not a united approach. And they will not be part of something that's controversial. So if everybody's not in agreement to move forward with it, it's not gonna happen.
So,
And you gathered some negativity from Senator Helming.
yeah, well, you know, by the end of the evening, she wasn't as negative as she was at the beginning.
But But that's the
It's,
overall NIMBY attitude
I need,
that Doug mentioned.
I
It's a hard
believe,
sell, no matter what.
and I believe she's reflecting from people in the community.
Oh, yeah.
That-
You
And I
betcha.
believe that I can convince, I can talk to her and she would have an understanding of it.
How you sell the
But I-
community is Doug's.
Yeah. Yeah,
Well, and there's a wide spectrum, right, when it comes to livable workforce housing, you know. East Street in Rochester, I would live there.
I would too.
Oh,
Just up
it's
there.
a
East Avenue?
wonderful area,
Nice.
East Avenue?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
me too, in a
it's
heartbeat.
gorgeous.
Right.
Beautiful.
and
It
that's
is. I was
all
just up there yesterday.
quote unquote identified. The governor actually just made an announcement, cut the ribbon on the affordable housing right there. It's beautiful, right?
Well, where the old Genesee Hospital is on Alexander Street. I'd live there in a heartbeat. I love
Right.
that building. It's like Factory 243.
But how do we, but not everybody agrees with us, right?
That's right.
Right.
And then how do we tell that story? How do we also help explain to the community the different types of livable workforce housing and whether or not to see the support? There was a lot of pushback on Creekview Apartments, County
know
Road
there
10,
was.
a lot of pushback.
There still is.
There still is. I've had more than one local official say to me, we don't want that in our town.
Oh, me too.
We've got to stop using the term workforce housing or affordable
That's
housing.
what I was
Use
gonna
It's
say.
workforce housing.
Workforce housing,
Absolutely.
it implies a whole different
It is.
Correct.
It's got a
vision.
whole different
It-
feel.
We're
I
helping the
agree.
fireman and
I
the
agree.
waitress and the store clerk find a
Mhm.
place to live.
That's right. I agree. I agree with that.
Affordable is a negative to start out with, or
Mhm.
subsidized. Affordable and subsidized to most people is the same
I-
thing.
Try not to ever say subsidized.
Which is actually the great thing, the county is doing a housing needs analysis.
Yes,
It's not, there's no adjective
exactly.
Nothing.
to
Right.
understand really what the current dynamics are in the county.
Maybe we should look at changing the name on the goal, the town goal.
We may need to, I think back often to the goal in the previous comp plan, and I know there's some variation in this comp plan, that was making Canandaigua a place that is livable for people of all ages, income levels, and abilities.
Right.
Because that's inclusive, right? And that's what I feel like we're really trying to do with a lot of our initiatives.
Yeah, I agree with you.
And that's, so when you were touring, was Vinny Esposito? So he's liking that playground to a more global,
Yes,
that makes absolute
right,
sense.
the inclusiveness.
So this
of that.
playground's inclusive, that's great, if it's not bigger.
Right, and it's already what we're seeing with that is there's a very exciting link now to the Y. And that looks like that's going to continue to grow. And then there's a link to economic development. And then there's a link to some of our businesses. Then there's a link to childcare, which we know is a problem for a lot of the residents of our community. There's that's been, actually, it was Sandra Helming herself that at the Y ribbon cutting or groundbreaking said that this has now been designated Canandaigua as a childcare desert. So there's a link there. And then there's a link to the housing component for that, for our community of the workforce. You know, there is a link for this inclusiveness to all of these different pieces. It really, it's interesting how this playground has really started to motivate us to think differently, but it has. It's broadened our perspective a little bit.
In the
That's amazing.
letter of support that I wrote for the grant that you're applying for, I attached the photo of the 102-year-old woman on the
Mhm.
swing,
Oh, yeah.
and what's her name, Rhonda from
Mhm.
MRB. She came back and she said it's a great photo, and that
Aw.
stuff like that really
Right.
grabs them. So
Right, right.
hopefully it will, because that, to me, that is an indication of inclusivity. You know, it's not children with their parents riding, but sitting on the rides. It's a really old lady on one of the rides all by herself.
Well, at the risk, and it hasn't gone to the town board and it's just high in the sky, but I'm standing at the playground and I was asked, what do you need from the state? I said, $5 million and making it a little I Love New York Welcome Center would go a long way.
Mhm.
And the response was, well, it's not so little.
So, okay, now I gotta tell you, I met with a man in Geneva last week at the Welcome Center. Now, I remember when that was put out, when they wanted to develop that Canandaigua, Geneva, right? And Geneva got it.
Mhm.
I had never been there.
It's amazing, isn't it?
We went
Beautiful
We went
inside.
twice over the weekend.
Mhm.
This,
Oh, it's
you
really
have to go
nice.
there. You have to go there. This place, not only is it's beautiful inside, it's well constructed. It's got tables. You can have lunch there and they'll actually serve you at your table. They have wine and beer, and on some weekends they have a tasting bar. They have information about all different things. You know, they have these interactive things about everything. They have an outdoor area that's like 10 feet from the lake where you can sit there and enjoy your lunch. It's under an umbrella. I mean, I am like amazed.
Taste of New York. You can also learn the story of Sonnenberg, the Ranger homestead in there. There's stuff on the walls about
Yep,
it.
everything throughout the area. Yeah, the Finger Lakes area. So that
That's
is
awesome.
run by New York State. It's in Geneva. In Geneva, which the road in front of it is under construction 10 months out of 12 every year, right? But there were people there, and I can tell you the looks on people's faces were, I'm amazed that this is here, frankly. We could have something like that at Ocean Junction.
Wouldn't that be cool? And then you talk about bringing all these pieces back together with the housing component and the economic development and the childcare, where there is a huge opportunity here. Huge.
We need the attention of the state of New York.
We have it.
We need more than attention. We need the dollars that can attach to.
Well, obviously,
attention.
government moves slowly, but
I know.
I can tell you that even over the last month, the attention level has significantly ratcheted up to the point where there are many conversations taking place. And I don't know what that's all going to lead to, but I can tell you that we have started to get more and more attention about the planning efforts. I brought the state official in this room and showed all these maps, how we've done our homework, we've done our planning. And the response was, this is exactly the type of thing we're looking for in communities that have taken this step first. That has already led to another conversation. So I can tell you that we're getting the attention. Now that we have the attention, we have to, what are our primary objectives that we have the key support of the community on? Because that's the next big piece. Like I said, they're not going to put $10 million into the town Canandaigua. I'm not saying that they would anyway, but they're not going to give us $10 million to do stuff if it's going to be very controversial.
Yes, I agree with you.
And
Yeah.
so then we really, next steps are defining what we have alignment and agreement on so that we can go after that. And I think that we actually made a lot of progress at this last CIC meeting about those communication pieces, because that's going to become critically important to have that engagement with the community, and the communication going both directions, right? Communication going from us to the community, helping them understand options, as well as from the community, providing communication back to us about what they would like to see.
Yeah, hopefully the data that's coming out of this, will support a lot of the things that we're talking about now. Numbers, as they say, don't lie. And that's what I keep hearing, through all the conversation, is that we need that data so we can go ahead and formulate these different committees. I think, what's happened so far with Senator Helming and everything is terrific. It's things like that just, bring it to the surface. Doug meeting with Esposito, giving tours. There's a whole lot of things that I can see unwinding, if you will, as this goes on, just through growth, things that we'll have to do.
So to get there, we need more community support.
Mhm.
So how do we go about doing that? At one point, Brian Wallace suggested an execution committee. And of course, I had a vision of people with guns. That, I don't think that was what he was referring to. Yeah. But for lack of a better word, do we need, I have no idea how to do that. Do we need a table with a brochure at the dump, for lack of a better word? Or what do they call that thing?
The transfer station.
Transfer station, yeah. Like politicians do during election years.
What
Is
are we,
that one way to do it? I think you, actually, I can't even guess at what type of population you hit there, because I know rich people go there, poor people go there, middle class people go there.
lots of guys.
I think it's much more than just the transfer station. I
Yeah,
mean, when you think
it's-
about communication, I mean, and like a pizza, right? Okay, so maybe the transfer station is a slice of the pizza, but it's a lot more than that, which is why we had that whole conversation about putting money in next year's budget and hiring
For
an RFP and then
Right,
figuring
right,
out,
right.
because, but I think what's gonna be important for us over the next couple of months, and I know, we've talked about a shift really in the CIC, right? As we approach the new year. So we've got what, 5 months left, 4 months left, essentially. We've talked about shifting the CIC to really focusing on this communication with our residents piece and economic development, right? That's a pretty big shift. And looking ahead and having the project teams and all this stuff reporting directly to the town board. And when we start to look at that, if that's our new goal for 2023, what can we be doing in the meantime? We've got to start to talk about the problems so that we can put those in a RFP so that the respondents can identify the solutions or possible solutions and go through the analysis with us and furthering that, right?
So my first thought about this was we have to change the times of some of our meetings.
Mhm.
And they need to be in the evening to allow a different element of the population to come to them. Hopefully a younger one. Or an older, I don't know where the issue is. So if
The
we did
meetings like this are not going to get younger audiences.
No,
No
I-
You
way.
get them through this.
Right, and that's
Okay.
what we are ultimately gonna get to with that RFP and
Yes.
is like, how do we reach them?
and I just told her about the LinkedIn thing, that totally blew me away. I would have never guessed that. My one granddaughter is a marketing manager for a tech company, so she oversees the media marketing. Their number one choice for young professionals is LinkedIn.
Oh, absolutely.
I never even knew, I mean, I used to have an account on LinkedIn, probably still do, but I never knew there was advertising on it.
Probably 50% of my communication is through LinkedIn.
Really?
With CEOs and.
There you
Is
go.
it really?
There you
Yeah.
go. We gotta do,
We
I
are
did
not
know
their
that.
Oh, yeah.
target market.
let's.
You and
Get
I,
on there.
doesn't matter.
I'm not the
Was
target
this any-
market.
No.
No, I know I'm not.
We're
There is
Sean
a
is.
lot.
out of it.
Sean is the target,
That's interesting.
yeah, the younger crowd.
So that's why we need a young marketing intern to,
No, we don't. We need a company to help us
Tell us.
identify all the solutions
Oh,
and
okay.
then
How they-
Oh,
maybe
you're
an
thinking
intern
big.
is part of it. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we put some
Mm.
money in the
We
budget
gotta,
for that.
yeah, we need to get serious.
next
If we're
year.
gonna
What,
get serious, we
20,000?
gotta get serious.
I think it was 30.
30 or 40 or something.
Maybe
Really?
more.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, no, this needs to be, I mean, so what I see happening, I'm just gonna call a spade a spade. I see the town board paralyzed without additional data and communication from the residents. And so if we don't get serious about figuring out a way to get additional data from the residents, whether it's Met Meter, whether it's all these different things, I mean, there's so many different ways you do this nowadays. But it's bringing all that information together. And until we get that information, we're gonna struggle. And so
Mhm.
getting that data in on any number of different things. Does 80% of the community, truly 80% of the population of 13,000 support housing initiatives? Yes, okay, we'll probably move forward. If they don't, we probably won't, right? But it's getting that data.
That's key. I think that's key, Doug. You hit it right on the head.
Some of it is education, information, which I guess you can
All of
get
it.
through electronic media for lack of
Yeah.
better understanding.
It's
Because they
amazing
don't
what
read
you
the
can do.
newspaper,
Oh, yeah.
they don't show up at meetings,
Well, there is
but
no
they will
newspaper.
read their phone or watch their
Yeah,
phone.
I'll
For
read
sure.
Apple News. I'll
For
read,
sure.
I'm in Google News. I
No,
don't read a
well,
paper. I
No,
mean,
I
I'm
don't
not
either.
I'm not young-ish, but like 30-year-olds, but
But,
still.
but you
I
would be
don't read the
part of our
paper.
target market.
Yeah,
No,
I'm
you
a
and Kim would be
working
part of our
mom
target market.
and I don't have
None of
time.
the rest of
Yeah.
us are.
No, everybody's part of it.
We all
Yeah,
have
yeah.
ways that
If
we,
you're a resident of the
some
town of
people read the
Canandaigua, you're
paper.
part of the target market.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And so it's the ways that you
We all
communicate.
communicate
And
differently.
so, right, so newspaper or meetings like this, truthfully, Karen, Tom, that may be your preferred choice. But there's a big segment of the community that's not their preferred choice.
That's right. I agree with that. I mean, I know that.
Right.
So like Kim and I were talking before, everybody came in and she was mentioning the Zoom, how more accessible it is to have meetings via Zoom. I personally, I have a hard time hearing, and Zoom, unless it has closed captioning, is difficult for me. But I can understand that. And then I go to town board meetings and you're getting a lot of people. Well, it depends on.
It depends on the
whether you-
subject matter.
Yeah, but you get
5
more
out
and
of
more people.
13,000 is not a lot.
I understand that, but it's more than three sitting in the chairs.
But it's still. it's not-
insignificant.
It's insignificant. It's the people that always come and are engaged anyway. It's the same old people.
Mhm.
I mean, and I'm not disrespecting anybody, but we've got to get more of the residents of the town of Canandaigua.
Mhm.
So if we advertised a affordable housing, something at a
You
town
wanna,
board
I don't
meeting,
think
will
you
we get
got,
more
we
people?
gotta lose that word.
Right.
And I just wrote myself a note,
Yeah.
workforce housing.
So let's,
Workforce or inclusive,
let's say we hypothetically have this meeting, right? We're gonna get 20 people to show up. It's gonna be us plus about another 10 people.
that are worried about what's going in their backyard.
Exactly.
Yeah, they'll be
That's not
afraid
what we
of
need.
it.
So
We
what
need
do
be
we
afraid of
want?
it. They
Yeah.
won't be
Yeah.
advocates. They'll
We
be
need
scared.
to get information out to the community in terms of what are the major initiatives? Here's what surveys say, here's what this says, here's what the data is. Do you agree with this? Do you support this? There's any number of tools, but we can't do that on our own. We just don't have the staff to do that on our own. That's where we need, there's professional entities that help do all that stuff.
Well, you know, I've been going to town board meetings for a long, long time.
Mhm.
And I don't know if you remember, but I have always said that the water bill is a great way to disseminate information throughout the community. And
That
I
gets you
understand,
40%.
and I understand it's not everybody.
Yeah, that gets you less than half of it.
I understand, and I understand that, but it gives you 3 times as many people as show up as the meeting, probably more than that.
Yeah, but still, you're not pushing the information out there. What I'm talking about is things like technology, that you'll get a message on your phone that'll pop up automatically. Would you like updates from the town of Canandaigua? Click yes, yes, boom. here's how you start getting updates.
Yeah, and
from
I
the
agree,
information.
I agree with what you're saying, but it's gotta be
Right.
multifaceted. And
Absolutely.
I can tell you that the town of Manchester water bills, on the backside of their water bill is like a newsletter.
Mhm.
And it doesn't cost them anything other than printing that other side.
The increase in postage.
No, it's
if
one piece of
Oh,
paper.
it's one.
Yeah, they use the back of it.
Yeah, so we've done that. We've sent stuff out and everything else, but again, paper is, I mean, literally every single day. I go to my mailbox. I take 90% of everything straight to the
And I'm
recycle
straight,
bin.
I
I
agree
never
with
even
you.
open it.
But you don't throw your water bill out.
I don't get a water bill from the
So a
town.
lot of
Canada, I
people-
get it from Farmington.
But they
Oh,
don't
and
come,
I'm a
they
town
come
of Canada, right?
electronically.
Wait a minute, let me ask you,
I don't-
do you have your water bill automatically paid by credit card or the bank?
You know, because they don't.
Yes,
offer
I
that
use-
option in
They don't,
Farmington.
okay, because I,
I can't-
so many of our bills are paid automatically. I don't even open the
Right.
damn envelope even, you
Right,
know.
exactly.
Right.
Right. Yeah, that's why it's,
Whole
you
new
gotta
world.
use modern technology to be able to really get to people.
And
we-
it's,
we
and
need
it's not by
support for
snail,
that.
it's snail
No, it's
mail.
not by-
It's
not
like
in
the
mailbox,
newspaper.
It's not the newspaper, it's not meetings, it's.
Well,
Okay,
we're-
good.
Anything before I die. We gotta do this quickly.
It's too late for us.
Karen.
It does.
Yes, sir.
I
You
mean,
too, Sal.
really,
Sal was getting ready to say something, I think.
go for it, Sal.
Sal, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. What if we start to change our view and our attitude on the town as a whole? And start to look at it as a gateway to technology, a gateway to, health, the lake, that type of thing. Offer it that way. And then, as you say, you pick up your phone, technology, acoustics, whatever, they're gonna go to that and look at it incorporated in that type of thinking and marketing.
Yeah, Sal, you're on the right track there. So let me share with you guys two things. So each morning I get up and after I go for a bike ride and stuff, I spend an hour on my phone before I even come to the town hall. And I get so much information. I'm communicating through LinkedIn a lot. I've already had communication this morning with Jeff Shealy, the CEO of Acustos. I've already, but it's information that I have set up targeted for information that I want. I really don't, not that I don't care, but my priority is not what's happening in Geneva or Manchester, right? I want to know what's happening with Acustos today. I want to know what's happening with Pactiv today. I want to know what's happening with Artisan Meats today. I want to know what's happening in the federal government with semiconductor, because that directly impacts Acustos. I want to know what food stuff sector is going on. I want to know what's happening with the Y, with inclusiveness, with housing, with development and our key developers. So all that stuff is plugged in. So that stuff is populating immediately to me. So on top of that, I'm also, and I'm probably abnormal in this sense, that I'm also looking at stock prices. Okay, Pactiv, Acustos, and Tom and I talked about this for many years. What's happening? Where's it going? So when Schumer announced last Wednesday that the semiconductor thing, within an hour, Jeff Shealy puts out a statement that I also got that talks about the future of Acustos Technologies with the semiconductor. And then now with Rochester and the Finger Lakes region really primed to help lead that. And if you've missed some of that, so basically what the federal government is saying, because there's such a semiconductor shortage, they're actually investing in semiconductor businesses to help them grow, but they're taking it a step further in they're actually prohibiting government and prohibiting those entities that are receiving federal grants, et cetera, from purchasing technology equipment from countries like China and North Korea. So for instance, we already got the notification last week, our security system actually is going to have to be changed because it's run, I'll just tell you, it's run by a company called Hikvision, which is has a Korean connection. We now have to upgrade our security system. So and I know I'm not alone. It's everybody. They want the information that's important to them. They don't want broad spread information, right? How is it? You go back to the basics. Heart health pocketbook. How does this affect me health wise, pocketbook wise, or a heart for something I care about, right? and communicate to me about those, and you have my attention. The rest of it is all just noise. And I don't care about the rest of it. So getting a water bill for $100 a quarter and something in it, I could care less, whatever. But if it's something about, so it's those key initiatives and those key drivers. And so like, okay, Acustos could quadruple in size. Acustos has announced Canandaigua, New York is their world headquarters. They've already started ramping up any number of different things. They've already done expansion. By the way, Tom, the stock price is up 67 cents in the last 6 days. Anything, right? So, but any number of things, but it helps to, but I also just discovered that Jeff Shealy owns less than 1% of the company.
Yes.
It's owned by so many big technology companies now. Acustos, a
That's
lot
how
of
they had to
shares
raise money.
is
initially.
sold off to
Yeah.
a lot of other bigger companies, but there's so many different ways that we get information, and that almost all of it comes from here, truthfully,
I hear you.
almost all of it. And if we're not communicating like this, we're not communicating.
I would support that fully because I think this is the very best invention ever.
It's evil.
But it also takes a lot of time, right?
And actually that and the automobile.
I think that thing's evil.
But there's so many platforms. There's Telegram, there's Snapchat, there's Instagram, you've got Twitter, you've got Facebook, you've got LinkedIn, you've got so many, did I mention Snapchat? I mean, you've got so many different platforms that you have to have. It's more than just us saying, hey, Sarah, can we do a newsletter? It's so much more than that. It's people watch TikTok, right? People
Yes.
watch TikTok. A TikTok video is a 20-second video of somebody doing something and creating a reel. We could have a reel about any
I
number of
love
different
TikTok.
things,
I
right?
love it.
So many different things. And you get TikTok because Facebook pushes them through their feed, and that's how you get to it, right?
Well, no, actually I go.
Oh, you have a TikTok now, so, okay, so.
I
Right.
love it.
But
You're more
but the
modern
kids,
than me.
but the kids say Facebook is for grandparents, right?
It is for
Right?
yes. There is no like 20-some-year-old that uses Facebook anymore.
No, I know. there
Or
isn't. I
below.
know.
They don't use it.
I actually
Okay.
use Facebook to gain personal information
And then
because it
there's,
has it,
there's things like Telegram and WhatsApp that are used
Yeah, I have WhatsApp.
worldwide that are very limited in the US. They just haven't caught on here as much, but there's a huge whole other dynamic. But we need to at least understand what the residents of the town of Canandaigua are using so that we can communicate with them.
There's.
So as it relates to that giant conversation,
Right.
do we want to shift our calendar for the rest of the year?
I almost think you have to.
I think we need
versus- Versus reports from these
Yeah,
project teams. Let that
absolutely.
go directly to the town board. And then
And we talked about that for next year, but if we're
Mm-hmm.
gonna want to make any traction and get ready and geared up for 2023, we're gonna need to do that now.
I don't see the harm in changing the way we meet every Tuesday on the second and fourth, whatever,
First
first and
third.
third Tuesdays. I think even if it gets us a few different people, one person with a big mouth like me can distribute a lot of information to their friends and relatives. I don't know.
there's a company that, Sean, I don't think you brought it, where you, asked Lindsay and Sarah to join me in a pitch from a company that really helps with communication, because I wanted to see some of the technologies that were out there and stuff. And it's very funny. They refer to it, that all the communities are dealing with it, STP. They commonly refer to the acronym STP, the same 10 people.
That's
We
amazing.
have that here.
Yes,
That's
we all
so
have
true.
STP,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And how do
funny.
you get past the STP?
That's funny. That's so
And the thing
true.
is, we think
Oh, gosh.
we're doing good, and maybe we're not.
Right.
Maybe this isn't something that's on people's minds.
Well, guaranteed, it isn't there.
No.
We haven't got an awareness other than sprinkling of negative.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing though, here's what I would say, right? If you're a town of Canandaigua resident, truthfully today, you probably don't care so much about affordable housing. It's probably, you guys are probably
Workforce-
the minority.
workforce housing.
Okay, workforce housing, you probably don't care about that. I think you guys are in the minority, to be 100% honest. I don't think the average resident of town of Canandaigua cares necessarily about workforce housing. Now, do the businesses in Canandaigua from an economic development perspective care about workforce housing? You better believe it.
Absolutely.
That's where I think this is more of an economic development problem than it is a housing problem. And we have an opportunity here to share our community with more people and bring in more housing and help more businesses. We have a very robust education facilities around the area between FLCC and everything in Rochester, all the different colleges in Rochester. Couple that with a quality of life that's unmatched, and to be able to share our community and increase the housing, I think that's, you know, it's how you're communicating that message. But if I already live in a subdivision in Canandaigua or have a piece of property on a rural road in Canandaigua, do I necessarily care about workforce housing? How's it make it better for me? Heart Health Pocketbook. If it doesn't, what do I care?
You're right. Yeah, you know, well, first of all, on the county economic development board, I bring up affordable housing at every meeting. Every meeting I take time and bring that up. But one of the things that we talked, I think it was in the last meeting, was about the LDC. And you told me I need to go to the meetings, so I want to know when the meetings are. When do they meet?
The third Thursday of each month. In this room. At 8:30.
But one of the things that was said at our last meeting was that small businesses had a real difficult time as a result of the pandemic, and you know, I'm talking about the CARES Act, that sort of thing. But then someone mentioned business retention, small business retention, which is a real problem. And I know that's a problem because you see that, you know, you see stores opening and closing and you can't keep track of what's where. And so I'm also chairperson of the Small Business Committee in the County Economic Development area. And we're redoing our charter. So I'm looking at trying to add business retention and seeing if we can get some programs to support small business retention. Because that's what we want to do. We want to have programs that go out there and support economic development. So I'm going to talk to Ryan about having more of a more structured part about workforce housing and transportation, actually, because those are two critical things.
And daycare.
Yeah. Oh,
daycare is
Daycare is becoming huge. I just found, I've been hearing more and more stories of family members where one or the other of a family, for those families that are fortunate to have two household incomes, having to leave the workforce because of childcare.
yes. Yeah, and I know, and when I was raising my children, I worked at the school during the day. And my ex-husband worked nights. It was an ideal situation because one of my kids never were in daycare.
Right.
But how many people have the flexibility to do that? They don't.
They don't, but I'm hearing numbers like in our region, just within the last week, I can tell you, I was told that daycare for two children is
Oh,
$550
yes.
a week.
Yeah,
At that point, why work?
yeah, you don't go. you
Right.
don't need to.
Well, the YMCA camp is from both my boys is $400.
Yep.
Every week. That's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money. Yeah.
So it's a problem too. When school is out, what do? You scramble every week to try to figure out where these kids are gonna go.
Just a student.
Right. And
Yeah,
so then what I'm hearing
absolutely.
from an economic development perspective is larger businesses that are having real trouble with attendance because somebody's got to call out. They can't come in. So if they can't come in, stuff's not getting done at the office or in the manufacturing plant or whatever. And so it's really become
It's problematic.
housing. It feels like the three things are the things, and then there's infrastructure needs that we know of that support all of this stuff, but housing, transportation, and really childcare are three primary pillars of the stool that's needed to support economic development currently in our area.
So I'm going to push for more, more weight being given to those elements. I mean, I know I can on the small business committee, but as far as the board as a whole. And it helps that Ryan Davis's brother is chairperson of the IDA, because the IDA needs to be involved also.
Well, Ryan himself, his background, as president of the school board, he understands some of these issues. I know that he has shared with me that he's very interested to see what could be done for childcare type initiatives,
Mhm,
because he also
yeah, we talked
understands
about that
that.
also.
So,
And he comes from, interestingly enough, the part of the county that people don't pay a lot of attention to.
correct, right.
And so
Correct.
I think he is more, I mean, Mike just had his finger on everything, Mike Manikowski did. But I think Ryan will at first focus on those areas where there aren't the services that others enjoy.
But going back to the question with the whole conversation relative to housing, right? So let's say we put out a question, do you support housing, workforce housing of the residents of town of Canandaigua? That's so broad. Yeah, my guess is you get some to say yes, some to say no. If you say, do you support economic development in the community, in the Canandaigua? Because bringing jobs and that tax base actually helps to support the services that we provide to you. I think that you're going to have a lot higher yes participation rate, right? And then if you take it a step further and you explain that economic development is those three pillars, right? Do you support those three pillars? Then you're helping to educate them, tell the story, and what's really happening. You're getting a lot more of a yes, right?
So that should come
So
out
it's
of the
education.
LDC.
It really is.
Yeah, so the LDC has any number of initiatives. I think that truthfully, that could be coming from the county.
Okay,
But when we micro talk about specifically the town of Canandaigua, right, the communication and everything for the town of Canandaigua, it becomes important for us to really connect with people on whatever mechanism that people communicate, and then telling these stories and sharing this information, right? And then getting the feedback from them. That communication is both ways.
Let's go back to our next meeting. We need to wrap this up, which is August 16th, and how or if we want to shift our calendar, not our calendar, our topics. Because we have ECB updates scheduled for the 16th.
ECB updates.
Mhm.
yuck. Like, what are we gonna say?
what does the ECB even meet?
They are very important. Yes,
I
they
know
meet.
they're
They
important.
they're meeting tonight. They meet once a month.
Yeah,
Mhm.
ECB is
We get to pick,
concerned
we get
with
to
one
pick
of
on
the five
everybody's
major-
projects, the
major
environmental
goals,
things.
the
Yeah.
protection of the environment.
Mhm.
So I think we should hear,
Okay,
that again, only my opinion. But
And the
it-
conservation
it's a
easement
big
team.
deal of this community.
Better talk about that later, what we're gonna talk about in the next meeting of CIC.
yeah, we'll add that
Gotta get
tonight to the
prepared.
agenda.
Yeah,
Okay,
Conservation team, what?
they're meeting tonight, so I can add that they were asked to come to the CSC. So they could talk about it at tonight's meeting.
so both of us
If we
on the
want
16th
to-
would be a good thing, you're
Oh, that would be
saying.
Sarah too, to give a project update on the
Yeah.
easement team,
Yeah.
if we want to do that.
I'm on that too.
okay.
Right, yeah, that's right, you are.
Yes.
STP.
That's I'm gonna use that for the rest of the time. Okay, we'll stick with that, but this other conversation is gonna be present.
this for the minutes.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Sal.
Certainly, thank you.